Welcome to SJGames Live. I'm your cultist for today. Today we are going to be going through one of the stories in Choose Cthulhu. The campaign today is ending in slightly less than 2 hours, so if you have not gotten on it yet, go ahead and follow the link that's going to show up there in chat. And back this pack of books, right, Hunter? How many are there in the initial Kickstarter? There are 6 in the initial Kickstarter. They are solo adventures that you will be guided through, and you get to make choices along the way. Today, you all will be making the choices for us. Hunter and Brandon are watching chat, and they will be letting me know how you vote when it comes time to make a choice. You can see what your fate is today. Will you join the cult? Will you find yourselves a follower of the cult, or worse? Let's go ahead and get started. The cruel winter of 1926 has crept in, and you find yourselves in the well-stocked library of your residence in Boston. The newspapers have announced heavy snow for tonight. From where you stand in the shadow of the bookcases, you notice the first snowflakes fall against the window panes. Your name is Francis Wayland Thurston, and you work at Brown University, Providence, Rhode Island. Right now, you're enjoying your end-of-term Christmas holidays. Your reading is interrupted by the sound of pounding at your door. Your housekeeper steps inside, handing you a letter that has just arrived. Upon reading it, you learn of a tragic occurrence. Your great-uncle, George Gamel Angle, has been found dead. A much-loved man of 92, he was a historian and anthropologist working as a professor emeritus of Semitic languages at the same university where you work. The letter spells out strange circumstances surrounding his demise. It seems he'd been jostled by a nautical-looking fellow who'd emerged from the hut by the waterfront as your uncle was returning from the Newport boat. Physicians believe his death was owing to a cardiac arrest rather than the fall itself. This missive also appoints you as the only heir and executor of his will, and summons you the following day to meet with his lawyer, who will advise you on your inheritance. You pack your bags immediately and prepare for the trip. The following morning, you take the train bound for Providence. Following Professor Angle's funeral, you return to your Providence home, where you spend most of the year. You speak with your great-uncle's lawyer, and he provides you with everything he has bequeathed to you. These are the elements pertaining to investigation, to which the professor must have been very dedicated. Before you lies a peculiar locked box. You are also given the personal ring that was found in your great-uncle's pocket at the time of his death, which unlocks the box. Contents are enigmatic. There's a clay bas-relief, a manuscript divided into 2 parts, and a stack of press clippings, as well as a handful of papers with notes penned by the professor himself. Each and every one of these objects sparks your inquisitive spirit. Besides, is it possible that the contents of this box may be somehow related to the strange death your great-uncle suffered? Just might. In that case, which of these objects would you examine first? And we come to our first choice. Do you want to study the clay bas-relief? That is option 1. Option 2, if you'd rather read the manuscript penned by your great-uncle. Or option 3, if the press clippings have caught your attention most, we'll look at those. Go ahead and type in chat 1, 2, or 3, and Hunter and Brandon will tally the totals.
I'm also going to vote.
Hunter is also going to vote, so if you don't like the way Hunter votes, you have to outvote him. Again, this is the first volume of the Choose Cthulhu books. We are going through one of the adventures. Brandon also voted.
We have our fingers on the scale a little bit.
Slightly weighing things down.
I have not read through, so this is not a spoiler. I'm not sending this on any particular direction.
Yes, this is a blind read for all of us.
Okay, there you go. And we'll keep it open for a few seconds.
Yeah, we'll
not just
give people time to decide. Again, number 1 was the clay bas-relief. Number 2 was the manuscript penned by your uncle, and number 3 was the press clippings. Do you have any other comments in chat while we're waiting?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet.
It looks like 2 wins.
Number 2, the manuscript penned by your great uncle. Let's start there then. The manuscript is made up of 2 stacks tied with twine. Each half bears a title written in immaculate calligraphy of your great uncle, although this seems both to have a general and shared heading: The Cult of Cthulhu. The first section is headed 1925, Dream and Dream Work of H.A. Wilcox, 7 Thomas Street, Providence, Rhode Island, while the other is titled Narrative of Inspector John R. Legrasse, 121 Bienville Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, at 1908 AAS, MTG. Notes on same and Prof. Webb's account. Apparently, they deal with a profusely researched and important matters. Which of the 2 would you like to pursue first? Although perhaps you'd prefer to turn your attention to the box once more and choose another object. So we have 4 options this time. To choose to read Dream and Dream Work of Henry Wilson, choose 1. If you'd rather start by reading Inspector Legrasse's report, choose 2. You still have not examined the bas-relief and would like to do so, choose 3. And if you want to go back to the newspaper clippings, choose 4.
So 1, 2, 3, or
1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 is Dream and Dream Work of Henry Wilcox. 2 is Inspector Legrasse's report. 3 is the bas-relief, and 4 is the newspaper clippings. Looks like our vote is for 2, Inspector Legrasse's report. You decide to focus on Inspector Legrasse's report, which turns out to be quite interesting. He describes the way in which he came to possess a stone idol representing a similar figure to that on the bas-relief contained within the box. Apparently, he captured the idol during a raid through the swamps of New Orleans in November 1907. Where a strange ritual was taking place. He also mentions the events that transpired in 1908 during the annual meeting of the American Archaeological Society in St. Louis. Legrasse arrived there with a stone idol, and among the astonished scholars that were there, only Professor William Channing Webb offered his testimony. He connected the statuette with a tribe in Greenland. Once you've read the report in its entirety, you research further and discover not only that Legrasse is still alive and working as an inspector in New Orleans, but that in England, Professor Webb's son has picked up his father's investigation where he left off. It is therefore possible to meet either of the men who participated in your great-uncle's investigation. Who will be the first? So choose 1 if you want to go visit Inspector Legrasse in New Orleans, or 2 if you'd like to go to London to research for Professor Webb's son.
For anyone new showing up, we are voting in chat. All you need to do is type the number 1 or the number 2 for this choice. Pretty much whatever the number of any of the choices is.
And this week we are only on Twitch this week. We are going to be focusing our streaming here. So if you'd like to be notified, if you're not following us on Twitter or Discord, then you can also go ahead and just click the bell here and get notified when we go live on Twitch.
Hopefully, let's do some more cool stuff, like maybe some custom emotes and do polls like for this in the
Right,
future.
we'll actually be able to do in-chat polls and things like that once we increase our Twitch presence a little bit.
Yeah. We've already. Thank you guys also for who are following us already. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's 50-50 split.
Oh, it's a split.
Someone to break the tie.
In.
Barger,
Hunter,
or
two. Attendance is 2.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a sec to see if Barger types because I kept. We did have a couple people. After Brandon said 2, Paul has switched, so we'll go to 1. It looks
Number
like.
1. All right.
Okay.
So we're going to visit Inspector Legrasse in New Orleans.
I just want to go.
Meeting with Inspector Legrasse proves to be relatively easy. His office smells of tobacco, and the whole room is drowned in gloom, a foul half-darkness, itself a product of the New Orleans heat. Inspector John Raymond Legrasse is an honest and agreeable man. He shows empathy towards your concerns regarding your great-uncle's death and the research that has led you to his office. You've brought along all the material that the Professor Engel bequeathed you. Excited, you show it to him. Damn it, this again, he roars. Sorry, you ask, astonished? Have we met before? The old inspector mutters something under his breath before sitting back down in his old chair. Sorry, I must have mistaken you for someone else, he says, still studying you head to toe. Let me tell you a story. Confused but captivated by his deep and cautious voice, and hypnotized by the thick smoke of his spiced tobacco, you prepare for his tale. Which is...
So this one wasn't a choice, just telling you where to go.
Right.
Got it.
A couple of years ago, when the whole thing started, starts Legrasse, I had the chance to meet someone called Johansen. Gustav Johansen. He was a Norwegian sailor who, almost by accident, ended up on a cursed island, Legrasse. I was still researching the Cthulhu cult. Bear in mind that, after raiding the swamps and confiscating a particular fetish, I grew almost obsessed with this case. Well, heard about this Johansen, and when reading about the arrival of the freighter Vigilant, which was towing a steam yacht Alert. And you know what, Mr. Thurston? I believe that man could tell you far more interesting tales than anything you might dig up in this country. We've seen many brotherhoods of officiants perform in the usual voodoo rites, but there haven't been any traces of the Cthulhu cult in New Orleans since. You stare at the inspector with what he reads as a quizzical glance and almost immediately resumes his monologue. Trust me, I traveled to Oslo and tracked down Johansen. When I met him, he was writing down his own tale. I strongly suggest you pay him a visit. I assure you, whatever that man encountered will shed more light on this mystery. You won't find anything else of interest here. As the last word leaves his mouth, he stands up and shakes your hand. You stumble out of his office, feeling disoriented, but you have the address of the man, Johansen, who lives in Oslo. And again, we come to a choice. If you decide to travel to Norway to meet Johansen, press 1. On the other hand, if you've not read Inspector Legrasse's report, or wish to do so again, go to page 51. I believe we did already read. We've read the report already, so let's go ahead and just go to Norway.
Yeah, we'll go to Norway. Let's just do that one. Sorry, Jack. We'll promise he'll choose the next one.
Talking with Legrasse has opened another line of inquiry. That same evening, encouraged by his words and his unfinished tale, you board a cargo ship that deports from New Orleans to port to Europe. You will arrive at the Gothenburg dock, from where you will have to find your way to Oslo. But you are willing to try. The vessel sets sail before sundown, and you get ready to cross the Atlantic. The voyage is long and tedious, but you eventually make it to Sweden, where making the right connections gets you to the capital city of Norway, and finally to Johansen's doorstep. You knock on the door. His wife greets you. You make your introductions, and she invites you in, relieved to have someone to share her fears with. Gustav died in strange circumstances, she says, glancing behind her as if concerned that someone else might be listening. He was crossing an alley by the docks, and a bundle of old newspapers fell into his head from an attic, ending his life. However, his manuscript is still here. She puts down the cup of tea she's sipping, visibly trembling, and hands you a thick stack of papers bound by a length of twine. She seems relieved to have disposed of the document, and you set off for home. It has been a long journey, and the results somewhat meager, but you assume you might find some answers in the manuscript. Whatever they may be, you must restrain yourself from reading it until you arrive home. You're now back in Boston, in the comfortable library of your own home. You've undergone a long journey to Oslo to recover a crumpled manuscript that once belonged to Gustav Johansen, the Norwegian sailor who, according to Legrasse, traveled to Legrasse 2 years ago when Professor Engel started his investigation. There's something sinister and dark about that manuscript. Somehow, you're on the fence about reading it. For Johansen did meet an unfortunate end, as did Professor Engel. Are you willing to follow the footsteps of your great uncle? Is heeding the call of this Cthulhu entity just a simple way of condemning yourself to an ill-fated end? Or is it all mere superstition? If you decide to read the manuscript all the same, press 1. If you decide to cast it into the fire and abandon this research forever, light a clear cleansing flame and press 2.
Yeah, if you want to burn it, you have to use the flame.
Flame emoji? Alright.
Oh. Nope.
Press 1 or book emoji to read it. Press 2 or flame emoji to blank.
Barger has been responding. I just want to let Barger know you might not refresh your stream. You seem a little bit behind as far as the votes go. I do want to count your vote, so it's just taking a little longer. But I'm going to try to wait for you on this one if you're going to vote.
Might have a little stream delay going on.
Yeah.
It's looking like everyone wants to read.
We'll give it a second. I just want to make sure we're not in a rush. We're in Oslo, man.
No, we're back in Boston.
We're back in Boston. Sorry, I missed the return to Boston part. I'm in Oslo.
Hunter's Heart will remain in Oslo.
Does look like one has.
Right. Reading the Norwegian manuscript. You could not have imagined that among the papers you brought from Norway you would find such a demented tale. Johansson's prose becomes almost palpable as in retelling of the horrors he witnessed on that Legrasse island, whose name is as hard to pronounce as his existence is unknown, drives you to derangement, prey to hysteria. You destroy the manuscript that, to your own dismay, you could not help reading all the way through. Henceforth, your life becomes an ongoing nightmare. You have repetitive and recurrent dreams about the strange creature that escaped from the sealed tomb of Legrasse. You have never seen it, and you have never been there, but that does not stop you from hearing its calling, its whispered secrets and veiled threats whenever you shut your eyes. Eventually, your neighbors can stand no more of your incessant nighttime screams, so they break into your apartment only to find what is left of you. A dirty, convulsive, and deranged creature, mumbling incoherent phrases about things that come from the stars and unknown underwater cities. No one knows what caused this delirium. The clay bas-relief that you seem to worship with candles and small animal sacrifices certainly catches their eye. Your walls are covered with press clippings. There are pieces of manuscripts piling up around this apartment, and it appears you may have eaten a handful of them. Everyone who examines you determines it would be better up for you to end up secluded. On page 77. You wake up in a locked room with white walls. Your arms are restrained by a jacket with disproportionately long sleeves that are firmly strapped behind your back. You're dazed by the drugs that have been administered to you. Doctors and nurses visit you regularly and ask all sorts of questions in an attempt to understand how your shattered mind works. Your answers are monothematic, and you repeat them in an endless cycle. The Cthulhu cult, the Great Old Ones, the underwater city of Legrasse, and a blasphemous and unpronounceable psalm no one insane person who visits you manages to utter without becoming your new cellmate. Penuguli Mungulfnaf Cthulhu Legrasse Wagnagothagan. Sadly, it seems you will spend the rest of your days within these padded walls, and try as you might to scream for help, at night, a large figure of a squid-headed dragon with rudimentary wings still comes in your dreams to whisper blasphemous secrets. Sorry, but no treatment can quiet your desperate pleas.
So, now that we've done the test message, let's go back and make a better decision.
And do we want to burn the manuscript
Let's burn
instead?
the manuscript. Let's go to that decision and see what happens.
Let me relocate that one.
Chat wonders, where's the nearest bathroom?
When I hear the word numbers page 77, I knew we were in trouble. As Paul said, 77 is the new 666. Still won't read.
So instead, if we'd cast it into the fire,
Yes. Let's see what happens if we cast it in the fire.
you do not have a good feeling regarding this whole business surrounding the so-called Cthulhu cult. Evidently, whoever gets too close to it comes to suffer some terrible fate, as did your great-uncle Professor Angel. You have a comfortable life and wish for nothing else. Thus, that same night you cast into the fire the contents of the box bequeathed to you by Professor Angel and all the information you've gathered along the way. Out of the corner of your eye, you glimpse an infinitesimal part of poor Professor Angel's delirium. The abominations and the dancing devil flames curdle your blood. When the last embers die down, you sit comfortably on your favorite couch and remain silent, enjoying your solitude. You conclude that although having adventures might be fine, nothing surpasses the preservation of one's own sanity. The end.
Oh, okay. So that was pretty much like the end decision, essentially, for that particular.
That particular
trail.
branch. If you go to Norway, we can go back to opening the box and choose a different item.
Yeah, let's do that. I want to try different options. I want to see what happens. I don't want to spoil it all for everyone. So we won't do all of them. But we have time. We for sure have
We've got time to do another item.
Yeah,
So
let's try a different item. I just want to see what happens. We'll still
So
vote
there's
each
the we'll reread this one, what's in the box. The contents of the box. Excuse me. There is a clay bas-relief, a manuscript divided into 2 parts, and a stack of press clippings, as well as a handful of papers with notes penned by the professor himself.
Which one did we look at? I think we looked at either the relief or the...
We looked at the manuscript, so our choices are the bas-relief, the manuscript penned by our uncle, or the press clippings. We went with the manuscript penned by our uncle.
How about that relief? I don't think we ever looked at the relief.
We did not.
We'll vote from here on out, since this should be theoretically different.
And there are branches in the manuscript path we didn't follow either.
True. I just don't want to show it to everyone.
Yeah. So we did one branch in that path and found its 2 endings. We'll do this path now. The clay bas-relief depicts a monster of a form that only a diseased fancy could conceive. It suggests an amalgamation of a humanoid creature with a dragon and a squid. Next to the bas-relief are notes penned by your great-uncle himself, implying that he was not able to decipher the meaning of the indecipherable hieroglyphics that are carved on the tablet, despite all his knowledge and proven learning. There is also a brief description of the artist who sculpted it. His name is Henry Anthony Wilcox, and he lives in the Fleur-de-Lis building, student accommodations near Rhode Island School of Design. Perhaps it would be advisable to pay him a visit. Or maybe you could rather examine the rest of the contents of the box.
So 1 or 2?
So we can meet Wilcox.
You guys give you guys some time to vote.
We can beat Wilcox. We can go back and look at some of the other things in the box. I think this time we're pursuing this path, so we would.
I'll give them a sec. We'll just give them a moment, just in case.
In case they decided they don't want to look at down the
Yeah,
statue.
maybe they don't want to.
Our option would be go back and look at the manuscript or the press clippings.
Well, we put our hand on the scale, I guess, so we're going to 1. Let's do that. We're going to go visit a dude in
Visit
Rhode
the
Island.
sculptor. At the Fleur-de-Lis building, you are told that Henry Wilcox no longer resides there. His constant episodes of delirium and howling were disturbing the rest of the students. The manager hands you the address of his parents in Waterman Street, and you head in that direction. They invite you in and extend all manner of niceties, especially when they learn about the family ties that bound you to Professor Angel. They confide in you that Henry suffered one of his acute anxiety attacks, for which he has been admitted to a nursing home. His father, a sad and taciturn-looking man, provides you with the address. You soon come to realize that it is actually the infamous Arkham Madhouse, and that term, nursing home, was but a euphemism to conceal the fact that their son is secluded in a prison for dangerous madmen. You thank Henry's parents for their hospitality, wishing their son a speedy recovery, and wonder what to do next. If you resolve to pay Henry a visit at the asylum, press 1. If you find the rumors concerning the Arkham Madhouse disturbing, you could examine one of the other objects in the box instead. So that would be 2. Look at another object, or visit the Arkham Madhouse. Madhouse is 1, other objects are 2.
Sounds like an adventure. But the other one sounded like an adventure, too.
And this would be the original Arkham Madhouse, not the DC Universe Arkham
Yes,
Madhouse.
this is the real one.
And again,
Paul keeps wanting us to go back.
if you're just joining us, we are going through the first volume, some of the past in the first volume of the Choose Cthulhu series, that is, ending on Kickstarter in less than 2 hours. Should be links at the beginning and end of chat if you'd like to go back it. It's a set of 5 books that are being, they're all solo adventures that you read through, like this, involving various bits of the Choose Cthulhu, of the Cthulhu Mythos universe. These are the first 5. There are more in the series. We are translating these from Spanish, I believe. They're originally released in Spain, and they have several volumes there. So, planning to use those. While we are waiting, also...
We got one. Looks like Barker got this one. Thanks, Barker. Broke the tie.
All right.
Oh, sorry, what were we going to say, John?
So we are, if you're hearing the spooky background music and sounds, we are using the Sirenscape from Sirenscape.com to provide our backing tracks for this. We use that sometimes when we do RPG streams and stuff, and we thought it would work well for this one as well. So feel free to go check them out as well if you like to have creepy background sounds or other appropriate background music during your games. All right, we are paying Henry a visit at the asylum on page 36. This is the ill-fated Arkham Madhouse, about which many a rumor has been spread, claiming electroconvulsive therapies, illegal lobotomies, and butchered trepanations. The facade of the building is enough to make your hair stand on end. You walk up to the front desk in the reception hall and ask for a patient who has been confined there for almost 3 weeks, Henry Anthony Wilcox. The receptionist eyes you suspiciously and asks your name and the reason for your visit. This distrusting attitude makes you suspicious. Should you consider lying, or should you be honest about your visit? What will it be? You can lie and tell them you're Wilcox's old tutor who just discovered his whereabouts when talking to their parents. Or you can show him the clay bas relief and explain the truth behind your visit to Arkham Asylum. So 1, to lie and say you are his tutor who just visited his parents and have come here. Or 2, to show them the statue, the bas relief that he made.
Don't show him that statue, come on.
Brandon wants chaos. I wonder if the statue might make... Sorry. Yeah, let's do
Well,
one.
they're already in the right place for it, aren't they?
That's true.
They're in good hands.
Are we showing the artist the statue, or are we showing the people?
The
Yeah,
receptionist.
I don't think we should show them.
Oh, yeah, we gotta lie to this person. We must lie. It looks like 1.
Yeah. Lying it is.
Oh, this is fun.
You conceal your identity, pretending to be an old tutor of Wilcox and deliberately omitting any reference to the bas relief. You are told at the front desk how to reach the sculptor's room. You step inside, leaving behind you a long corridor that slowly becomes one with the shadows. The walk was harsh and somber, for you heard the demented howling of the patients, which curdled your blood and chilled your spine. Feigning that you could not hear their pleas for help, the uncontrollable laughter, or their miserable cries, you proceed ahead, praying that you do not end up like these poor people. After a long and lonely march, you arrive at the end of the corridor, open the door, and step into Henry Wilcox's room. Stepping into Wilcox's room, you find a terrifying collection of cult objects, most of which have been sculpted out of clay, although others are made of plaster, wood, and something that resembles the mud you would find around a puddle. In any case, you observe a similar theme across the collection. It seems to pay homage to the same squid dragon creature captured in Professor Engel's bas relief. Alongside the multitude of small figures that represent the same creature, there are larger sculptures scattered all around the space, next to the bed, on his desk. Some are as much as 3 feet tall. And on top of that, the walls and ceiling of this room are covered with the same unrecognizable writing present on the bas relief. Wilcox remains in the corner of the room, unmoving and unable to look anywhere but at you. "It is coming, Mr. Thurston," he says in the muffled tone of a madman. "Its coming is near, and this is the announcement." You shudder at such levels of insanity and wonder if you might be getting a step too close to a plane of madness you might struggle to leave later on. You ponder, was it a good idea to stand this close to Wilcox? If you decide to remain in the room and question Wilcox, choose 1. If you wish to escape this place, fearing the boy's insanity might be dangerous, choose 2.
You voter in. Oh,
Welcome.
get a few more.
Do we talk to the madman, or do we flee? So as we were preparing for this stream, I got to have my own Princess Bride moment. We're planning to read this, and Hunter's like, and if we had like a cultist robe or something, I got to have my Holocaust robe. Yeah, we got it right here. From the siege, the infiltration scene in Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got one right here.
Number 1. sir.
Number 1, we are going to remain in the room and question Wilcox. What's all this, you ask, deeply astonished. It's the great Cthulhu, Mr. Thurston, said Wilcox, fear in his voice. I've made all these sculptures in my dreams, just like the bas relief I made for Professor Angle. But this is all very recent, you reply, noticing with utter repulsion the fresh smell of the pieces. Indeed, all these I've made are in the past 2 weeks. In his nervous state, he almost manages to brush one of the abhorrent pieces against your face. Yes, Mr. Thurston, the man's great Cthulhu is coming once more. A shiver runs up your spine. There is no doubt that Wilcox is mentally ill. However, you fancy his dreams and nightmares must have an interesting origin. You observe the hieroglyphs drawn within the charcoal across the paper that covers his bedroom walls. What about this writing, you ask him? What does it symbolize? That's the content of an accursed book, he says. Necronomicon. Hearing the name of that forbidden volume curdles your blood. I've been able to see it in my dreams. I managed to transcribe parts of it in its original language. You inch closer to the walls. You've heard there's a copy of the Necronomicon in the Miskatonic University Library in Arkham. You wonder if you might be able to find the answer you're looking for among its pages. On the other hand, we'd also like to dig deeper into the boy's mind, although preferably outside these halls of dementia wherein he resides. Maybe you could invite him to your home.
What?
If you'd like to head for Miskatonic University to gain access to the Necronomicon, choose 1. Or invite Henry Wilcox to your home where you might conduct a proper interview or investigate his hallucinatory dreams, choose 2. Both seem great ideas.
I gotta go with 1. We'll see what everyone else says, but Miskatonic.
Do we go seek out the Necronomicon, or do we
Necronomicon
invite the
Nothing
man
bad.
with visions of Cthulhu into your home, out of the asylum he's been trapped in?
We got 2s. Looks like, unfortunately, getting outvoted. I think we're gonna be bringing home the artist. Give it a few more seconds here. Let's live dangerously. I feel like
I don't think there's a non-dangerous choice
I
here.
don't think there is a good choice. I think there's just one's a book and one's a dude. Let's do 2 then. Looks like 2.
All right, we are inviting him to our home. What could go wrong?
Let's live dangerously. Yeah, good job, guys.
You gather that if Wilcox was important to Professor Angel, he might also be so for your research. You manage to coax him out of the building and invite him to spend a couple of nights in the guest room of your house in Boston, where you believe you will be able to talk at ease and where, if he was to experience those nightmares again, you may chance to learn something from them. Wilcox, desperate and craving any type of help that could alleviate his solitude, agrees to accompany him. During the day, Henry seems calm and almost sane, although you notice his nervous state seems quite volatile. He could have a breakdown at any point. He agrees to tell you about his meetings with Professor Engel and about their talks regarding the so-called Cthulhu cult. That very night, after a filling dinner, the boy starts writhing in his dreams. Stepping closer with notebook and pencil in hand, you take note of his reactions and mutterings. You are convinced that, just as it had happened during Professor Engel's time, some relevant vision might transpire from his nightmares.
Uh-oh. No decision.
The sculptor writhes in his sleep, his eyes shaking behind the eyelids as if trying to escape from his skull, as his body convulses in a terrifying fashion. His mouth is gurgling a vicious foam, and it is then that he starts reciting in a language unknown to you. You attempt to make note of it. Those words belong to a demented and eerie tongue based around howling and sibilant constructions. You must be doing to Wilcox something similar to that which Professor Engel did 2 years ago. The artist flails with his arms in unnatural spasms. Realizing he is unable to utter any comprehensible words, you place a piece of paper on his chest and a pencil in his hand, hoping he might transcribe some of the occurrences happening in his soul-chilling dream. He scribbles on the paper. However, when he is done, you can only read an unusual combination of letters and numbers. POS 47-9, W 126-43. Eventually, he screeches, wakes up and sits upright as if pushed by a spring. He is drenched in sweat, visibly shaken. He stares, eyes wide open until he seems to recognize you. "I saw it," he says. "I saw it!" "What did you see?" you inquire, although you suspect you already know the answer. "Relais! I've seen the treacherous island of Relais!" You might be inching ever closer to the root of the matter. The question is, are you ready to face it? If you believe that trying to work out the meaning behind Wilcox's scribble and dream is a good idea, choose 1. If you consider his dreams to be but an episode of delirium and would rather do some research on the rest of the objects, choose 2. If everything feels too dangerous and you're starting to entertain the idea that you are following your great uncle's steps, abandon your investigation and choose 3.
It's a harder vote for 1 in our lives. I typed like 17 ones. Everyone's just hitting 1. Give it a couple more seconds. But look, it's looking like we think we're ready to face the madness. Yeah, let's go with 1.
You believe that trying to work out the reading behind his scribble and dreams is a good idea, because you've been full of good ideas so far.
Fixed all those bad ideas. Now they're good ideas.
What's that? Is it 45?
As long as I don't hear 77, I know I'm good. It's easy street.
Your thirst for knowledge and your interest in Wilcox are enough to keep you investigating. You trust your youth will make you less vulnerable than the ancient Professor Engel. As soon as you've made sure that Wilcox is at ease, you pick up a paper that is lying on his chest. P.O. could mean anything. But the rest of this gibberish must be coordinates. South, latitude, 47 degrees, 9 minutes. West, longitude, 126 degrees, 43 minutes. A brief moment of pondering elapses before you come to the conclusion that they correspond to a point in the Pacific Ocean. That is, P.O. You have the exact location of the underwater tomb of the squid god, the nightmarish island that Wilcox calls Relais. When he is completely serene, you start fantasizing about sailing a boat in search of the city he has seen in his dreams. Although, at first, he seems unconvinced, he eventually gives in, and you find yourselves actually planning it. It might be the only way of getting the island out of my mind, he says. I'm not sure I'd want to see the horrors it harbors. Wilcox's words are ominous, but holding on to reason, you discard any superstitions. You should undoubtedly tread carefully and hire tough and armed sailors. You cannot shake the feeling that you are standing at the gates of a major breakthrough, something for which your anthropological exploits could be praised. And we start prepping for our trip.
We're gonna be heroes, guys.
maybe even get tenure.
The most horrifying of things.
Thankfully, your contacts somehow allow you to charter the Neptune, clandestine ship, along with its whole crew via the Boston black market. It might not be the safest bet, but your savings will not cover an official expedition, and no public institution would fund such a trip, especially if they were to know the weak links behind it. The crew is comprised of coarse and rough-looking men. When you meet them at a tavern near the port, you realize they are quite quarrelsome and display an intolerable swashbuckling confidence, which piles onto the fact that they are almost always drunk. These sailors will likely make the journey unbearable, but that island may well be inhabited by hostile and aggressive beings, in which case you will be thankful to be under their protection. In any case, there's still time to call off the expedition. The leader of the seamen, a rough Irishman by the name of Connolly, stretches a hairy and gnarled hand over the table at the tavern. He spelled out his conditions, a small fortune, and is waiting for you to shake on it and seal the deal. Will you? You shake Connolly's hand and seal the deal, continue preparing the expedition, and choose one. If you think these sailors cannot bring you any good, back down and resume your search some other way. Press 2. The whole deal is making you too anxious. Call off the investigation on 3. I don't think we're going to see any 3s.
Call. It's boring. It's got a 2. See if anyone else chimes in here. I think that's enough ones. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to shake his hand and seal the deal. These people are not trustworthy. They are also your only chance of preparing a vessel on your own and heading for Legrasse now that you have done the hardest part, finding the exact coordinates. Connolly arranges his people, and you meet Wilcox in the stern cabin. Conscious of the likelihood of him having strange and hallucinatory dreams again during your journey, you resolve to remain by his side at all times. Wilcox insists that he should be the one to carry the bas-relief that he himself made, so you take the manuscripts and press clippings inherited from Professor Engel. The ship leaves Boston quietly at 3 in the morning to avoid any authorities at the port. The downside to this plan, however, is that if something were to happen to you, no one would be any the wiser regarding your sailing. But you should leave aside such ominous thoughts. With a favorable wind, you trust the voyage will be fast and without any difficulties. You sail down the maritime course towards the Panama Canal, although you're still to devise a plan to have this illegal vessel greenlit to head for the Pacific. But we will do so once we reach page 39. Once in Panama, it is the captain again who takes to bribing any figure of authority at the port. With your money, that is. You cross through the channel and head towards the heart of the Pacific Ocean. As the sailing days go by, Wilcox is once more plagued by new nightmares. Each of them shares a similar theme. The tentacular and winged being he shaped in his bas-relief, the Cthulhu cult, the seal of Legrasse, and the return of what he calls the Great Old Ones, the arrival of those creatures that came from the stars aeons ago. At once, Wilcox wakes up with a jolt. This time you recognize a spark of madness in his dilated pupils. "Better to arm up, Mr. Thurston," he says. "What do we need arms for, you ask?" He simply shrugs. Almost every weapon on this ship is in the forecastle, but you have a gun and a musket at your disposal in this cabin. Pick up the gun to check if it's loaded when a deafening sound coming from the deck distracts you. Connolly appears in your cabin, armed with one of the muskets. "Not long till we reach our destination, Thurston," he states. Then aiming his musket at you, he says, "Now you will tell me exactly what we are looking for on this island." You believe he's not seen the weapon you hold under the desk, and you may be able to shoot him without him realizing. Although that would alert the rest of the crew, which in turn could result in your massacre. Might be better to stay calm and talk it out. Is it? You decide to shoot him and suffer the consequences.
Whoa.
Pull the trigger and press 1. If, on the other hand, you conclude a lie could buy you some time until you resolve this issue on the island, choose 2.
Blind has worked at 100%.
Mine worked really well before.
Put it down.
some interior art in this one. Ooh. Captain coming into your rooms. No firearms today. From under the desk, before Connolly has time to repeat his question. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Hang on, I almost read you the wrong choice. Luckily, there's art to find that page from. He said it's looking for the art. He just had open. We're using our words. That's back on this page.
Two's ready to shoot somebody.
I was ready for you to shoot somebody and suffer the consequences.
Not for any lifeboats asking for a friend.
That would be on if you were on a ship that was, compliant with regulations and everything else, not bribing dockmasters and leaving at 3 a.m. You gather that it would be best to talk. You could shoot Connolly and take him down, but then the horde of sailors would want to charge you. It would be 15 against 2. It's better to stay calm. Perhaps a well-delivered lie might suffice. We are searching for a treasure, Captain, you say, leaving your weapon aside. Connolly is no longer aiming the musket at you. Treasure, huh? Yes, we've heard it's worth $1 million. And we'll split it up evenly, intervenes Wilcox. A wolfish grin creeps into Connolly's face. His gnarled hand scratches the blackened beard that covers his countenance. He mutters. Very well. It's a deal. And I swear on my blood that I'll see it through. Going back to the deck. Won't be long before we berth. $1 million. Connolly leaves your cabin, excited with the prospect of half the loot. Wilcox approaches you. Have you lost your mind? He spits out. What are we going to do when he gets to the island and sees there's no treasure? They'll kill us! A lopsided grin cuts across your face. Each passing day since this investigation began, the belief that this tentacular god lies beyond the sea has started to grow on you. Once you set foot on its territory, it will deal with the rest. Do not worry, you tell Wilcox. Once we get there, those men's threats will be the least of our concerns. Determined to finally face your destiny, you climb on the deck. The ship approaches the coast of Legrasse, and while you stare at its beaches covered in pinnacles and minarets, you notice a struggle behind you. Something heavy falls near your feet, and it starts writhing and shaking. It's Wilcox. His legs and arms are tied. He is gagged. Connolly stares at you, evil in his eyes. I think this is the end of your journey, he says. A second later, 4 rough sailors grab you by the arms. We had a deal, you protest, struggling. One of the sailors throws a heavy punch at you. You and Wilcox are dragged to the prow, where you can discern the coasts of Legrasse. You're bedazzled by the non-Euclidean angles of its architecture, even when you know that death awaits you. Sorry, Thurston, says Connolly. Why would I settle for $500,000 when I can have $1 million to myself?
Whoops.
The insane laughter of the captain echoes as the rest of the crew joins in. But how will you find the treasure without our help? You ask in a desperate attempt to save your life. Have you seen this tiny island, says Connolly? Still cackling? Piece of cake for us. Your words drown out the scorching flare of pain caused by a violent stab that pierces one of your kidneys. You let out a howl and feel hot blood dribbling from the wound. You see how one of those brutes slits Wilcox's neck before tossing his body into the sea. A similar fate awaits you. Bloody and dying, you fall over the railing of the Neptune. A split second before sinking completely, you get one final glimpse of Legrasse, the island that you will never set foot upon.
So close.
The end.
Oh, we almost had it. Should have shot that guy. That's the problem.
Violence is always the answer.
That's the answer.
Or lies. We tried lies.
We did try lying. Lying always worked until we died.
What about violence and lying?
Violence and lies.
Dang, we should have combined them. That's how we win. Well, we'll never know how we win because that's going to be our last one for today.
Well, you can find out how you.
But you can find out.
But you can find out how.
The campaign is literally ended in 1 hour.
1 hour from now, so last chance to hop on board for these. The first 5 volumes of the first 6 volumes of the Choose Cthulhu series.
Hopefully, we can bring even more over. This has been a really successful little campaign.
Oh.
Really excited to bring these to the to our catalog. So yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you guys for backing. Thank you guys for all. And like Jimmy mentioned before, we are moving to Twitch exclusively for streaming. So if you could follow us here, that'd be awesome.
Follow us here. It's going to allow us a few better tools rather than, and it'll be easier to read one screen of chat than 3.
Yeah, it's just going to be a little bit easier to give us a few more things we can offer you guys.
Most of you seem to be here already, so we're just kind of consolidating it here. But you can reach us here. You can follow us. We notify on our Discord. So what else do we have this week?
I think that's it for Kickstarter. We do have our Easter dice sale
On Warehouse 23, there's a sale.
50. It's you order physical items of $50 or more, and you get free dice, Easter dice, celebrating the season, as it were. And if you, I believe, also all this month, it's 23% off dice bags. So to store those dice, you want to pick up some bags to store your Easter dice, or you want to pick up a Cthulhu dice bag or a Chibi Cthulhu dice bag
To go with the Cthulhu stuff you'll eventually have as well. You can't never have too much Cthulhu stuff.
We had a couple things in chat. Thank you, chat, for tuning in and following along. It's a lot of fun. We might have to do this again for something else later. Maybe do some RPG stuff as well. We'll figure it out.
There's 5 other books.
There are 5 other books. We'll try a few more. We're also going to be trying a few more things with the stream as we come up with them. So.
Yep. Exactly. But
well, thank you everyone for joining us today for a walkthrough of the Cult of Cthulhu, Choose Cthulhu adventure book. We covered a couple of the endings, but there are many more in there. And we will see you all next week back here, Thursdays at 2 o'clock Central on SJGames Live.